Good evening and welcome to Tuesday's Encounters from New York. This program is presented every Tuesday at 7 p.m. New York time, and my name is Mark Beecher. I'll be your host tonight. Our very special guest tonight is Ms. Catalina Osorio A.K. Catalina is originally from Colombia. She's now residing in Istanbul, Turkey. Catalina, among her accomplishments, is a psychology major with interest in thanatology. And tonight's discussion will be frozen grief and how we deal with death of loved ones. So welcome, Catalina, and if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good.
Very nice.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Very happy to be here. Thank you so much. Well, you quite said the main points about me. I'm from Colombia. I've been living in Turkey for the last 21 years. And for about 4.5 years, I've been exposed to this fascinating topic of thanatology, death, grieving, all the process that has to do with losses. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So where do we begin?
Where do we begin? First of all, let me tell you that I always like to say why life took me to this beautiful path. And it was my father's death. It happened 4.5 years ago. And it was very interesting because I was very angry. After the third week of his passing, I felt very angry, but not because he had died, but because I was so unprepared for that. I said, how come we don't talk about death? How come we don't talk about the only topic all humans have in common? We are all going to die. We all have, all our relatives and people around us is going to die, and we don't talk about it. We don't know what it is to be mourning someone. We don't know what happens to our body, to our psychology, to our, social interactions. I mean, death brings a huge impact into our life, and we are not prepared for that. So because I'm also a teacher, I didn't mention that I'm a preschool teacher, and I've been working with little kids for the last 15 years. I said, well, if nobody taught me about that, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to teach around about this. So that's how I said, and I was, I'm being very careful when I use that word, but let's say that all the conditions were given to me because after my father passing, 2 months later, it was COVID. So we were locked up, and that was pretty much the only time in humanity that everybody was talking about death and how many people died and where and how. And that was also a time where everybody was sharing knowledge, social media, videos, books. I mean, there was like a big source, any topic that we wanted to go into, like it was available for us. So I started looking for the best possible way for me to be able to transmit this information. And I ended up meeting thanatology. So what is thanatology? It's basically the study of death and grieving from different points of view. So from the individual point of view, from the social and cultural and ritualistic point of view, from an anthropological point of view, even from an artistic point of view, and the way what a thanatologist does, and in my case, because there are different branches, is that we accompany people to go through their grief process in a more I'm not going to say easy, but in a more prepared way, because what we teach is strategies, tools to use through that process, how to cope with that in the most healthiest way. So that's what I've been doing. So that's it. It was a long explanation, but basically it was a huge impact in my life that created this beautiful path. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely, and that's true. I mean, we've all had to deal with the losses in our life, particularly our parents, or maybe siblings or friends. So it's something that we just incorporate and we go on, and maybe we don't know the best way to deal with it, and to express our grief or to express our feelings.
And we suffer so much because of it. That's so ironic. I mean, if we were kind of ignoring it would it make it easier? Then okay, it's all right. But it makes it worse. It makes it very difficult. And in the long run, basically what happens is that we get sick. So that's one of the most meaningful life purposes in my life is to create a grief culture around me. And I'm very grateful that you invited me so I can continue doing so. Thank you so much, Mark. It means a lot to me.
Well, we're happy to have you. Well, to begin with, I guess the very first thing is how it affects culturally. I mean, I'm sure cultures around the world attend to this very differently. Now, luckily here in the New York area, we deal with many cultures from around the world. It's the melting point of the world. So it's interesting in how different cultures deal with the deaths. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Well, actually, it's very interesting that you touched that topic because I'm Colombian, so pretty much in the entire Latin America, we deal with grief in a similar way. Yeah, we have our rituals. Because we're Catholic, mostly Catholic in Latin America, we have our rituals, we have our ways, we have our prayers. Obviously, each country has its very specific, things, but in general, it's the same. We all see it with a lot of pain, and we only keep company to each other for the first few days. But after that, everybody's by himself. And we have this idea of, we have to keep on moving on, just move on. Life continues. You have to make that person that died happy and proud of yourself. It's like, suck it up and go. And then I realized that it was not only in Latin America, but in North America and in Europe. And here I am in Turkey, between Europe and Asia. And the myths we have about death and grieving, the rituals and so many things, believe it or not, are very similar. And what I realized is that the less we know about it, the more we suffer, no matter where we are. I work in a school where many of us, kind of because of me, obviously, we started talking about this topic. And then I decided to have like a little interview about they were seeing death and their kids were dealing with it. And it was very similar. All the answers were very similar to the ones I had in Latin America. So look, imagine Turkey, a Muslim country, all the way on the other side of the world, and Latin America, we have a lot of things in common. So it was very interesting. The other thing that I want to tell you, Mark, is I could say that one of the main reasons why we have such a hard time dealing with grief is because we have issues dealing with our emotions. And that is, everywhere in our globe. now there is this new tendency, and it's beautiful that now we are teaching preschool kids how to deal with their emotions, how to name their emotions, how to cope with them, how to self-regulate, and that's beautiful. But it was not, it has never been like this before. So from one generation to the other is being passed like, okay, boys don't cry. Hey, don't cry like a little girl. Okay, it's okay, just forget about it. Okay, I will, it's okay, it will pass. So basically, it's like since we're very little, we are not being taught how to deal with our emotions. And it gets to the point that when we get used to not dealing with them, when we are encountering something very big, we really don't know what to do. So that's a big issue, big issue.
Right. I know one of the big issues in the United States has been mass shootings. When, all of a sudden, immediately, unexpectedly, there's a great amount of death and catastrophe. And how do we deal with that in terms of the survivors of these incidents? They need a lot of psychological counseling and a lot of care.
Definitely not. The thing is, that is something that not only has a great impact on the school that happened or the area where that happened, but culturally. And I mean, when that happens, the entire world learns about it and everybody gets very shocked by that. But when you experience that, we have children, we have their teachers, we have the families, we have the neighbors. I mean, this is a community huge issue and it has to be addressed. It really has to be addressed. Actually, you touch a topic that for me is very important because one of the things that we have been doing, and when I said we, I am part of a group, a thanatological group, where we give some support to children, to teachers, to the caregivers of these children, and to social media. If you want, I can just talk about that later on. But basically, one of the things that we do is that we train teachers to understand how kids feel when they are grieving, what their behaviors are like, what are the strategies that they can use. So when you talk about this mass shooting at schools, because usually it happens at the schools, at least the teachers will know how to deal with the kids. They will know how to deal with crisis, to be crisis. Now, there is post-traumatic stress. There are things that have to be addressed. There's so many things, and very little is done about that. So little by little, hopefully, we will be getting there. But basically, since the topic that I want to be talking about is frozen grief, I want to be talking right now about the different type of losses and how is it that we end up with a frozen grief, if you allow me.
Absolutely.
Now, the reason I chose this topic is because to me it was a big answer. Like, I was very devastated by the big loss I had, but I knew that there was something behind it. I know that there was something that I still couldn't understand, that the death of my dad had a great impact in my life, but what I was feeling was very strong, and I knew that there was something there. And then I realized that it was that I had some frozen grief, and that grief had kind of melted, and everything that I was feeling was not only the death of my father, but some other grief processes that I had just froze and kept somewhere there. So that's why I want to talk about this, because I'm going to give you right now a very big statement, and I will be behind it. And it is that everyone has frozen grief. We all have losses that we didn't process, and they are there somewhere in our mind. Our psyche is working so hard to keep it there, not to cause us any pain, but it's there. It's there, and sooner or later, or a little something will trigger the melting of that. So let's just get into the topic. There are, from a thanatological point of view, there are 7 different type of losses. So imagine 7. And the first loss, and the one that everybody pretty much understands as a loss, is the loss of a relationship. So we can talk about losing romantic relationship, because of it just didn't work out, or losing it because the other person died. When a child loses a parent, for example, a pet, losing a pet is the loss of a relationship. So even though it's not a person, it's somebody, it's a being that you have a connection with, and the loss of that connection gives you a lot of pain. So that's a big loss. And then we have the losses of parents that are alive, but they're not around. Maybe they have any addiction. Maybe they are living in another country and they're not around. Maybe they are in jail. So yes, the role model is there. I mean, the person is alive, but is not present in this in the child's or the person's life. So that's a big loss as well. When a kid, for example, is going to school and the favorite teacher leaves the school because maternity leave or because he changed the job, and that kid had a special attachment to that teacher. So when that teacher goes, it's a big loss for that child. So look, Mark, there's so many losses that we start having when we're little kids, but they are not seen as losses. And because they're not seen as losses, they are not treated like losses. And the child is too small to cope with it. You know, he doesn't know. Maybe he will cry, he will do a couple of things, maybe he will have some regressions, maybe he will have nightmares and a few more things. But after a while, the little mind of the child says, okay, you know what? You don't know how to cope with this. You're too little. You don't have the internal resources or the external resources to help you cope with this. So let's just freeze it. So the child freezes that loss. And it's like, if it is really in the freezer, untouchable, all the feelings, all the sensations are there. And then we move to a second type of losses, and that is an external object. So it can be a little blanket for a child, the favorite teddy bear, the pacifier. For an adult, it can be, you know, the ring that has been passing on from generation to generation to the brides of the family, and it's lost, and it's an object that had a very important meaning to the family. So when it's lost, it has a big impact as well. So anything that it's not a person, it's a thing, but there is a connection to it. So when you lose it, it has an impact on you. And for little kids, it's a big deal, but we don't see it as adults as a big deal. I remember that once in a grief group, this woman shared that she remembered, and she was in her mid-40s, when she was 6 years old and on a family trip, she had lost her favorite doll. And she said, I still remember how much pain and I felt, how vulnerable and fragile I felt because my favorite doll was lost. And I also remember the lack of empathy from people around me. Like, nobody seemed to care. They just said, you know, like, we will get you another one. That's not a big deal. But nobody understood my pain, and it was there. So that pain, whoop, goes again and get frozen in her mind because she cannot cope with it. So then we have environmental losses. And this is a very important one, because it has to do with where you live or with your work or the school that you go to. And when there are changes, and they can be natural changes, an earthquake, or any tragedy, a big fire, or a tsunami, or these hurricanes that are going in the Caribbean, for example, that are destroying, floods as well. So when that happens, there are multiple losses, because it's not only the house, but their entire neighborhoods, entire cities that are like devastated, wiped out from the map, and people lose a lot of things with it. So that's we call it environmental loss. But we can also talk about that when there is a divorce. So now the child is not going to have a home, but is going to have daddy's home and mommy's home. And that means that he is going to be moving from one place to the other. So his environment is split, sometimes into many different houses. The schools are changed as well. So this is a big one that many times is not acknowledged as a loss. So we have 3 different types of losses, and we still have 4 more. So imagine if the child is freezing little by little, all these losses that he's having, and they are not being dealt with. Then we have the loss of yourself. And this is a very important one. You can lose something about yourself when you're being bullied, when you are sexually abused, when you are mistreated, when you are ignored. So you lose your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-care. And this creates a big trauma. Or this is talking from a psychological point of view, but there is also when you lose a part of your body. So we can talk about amputations. We can talk about a child that is having chemotherapy, for example, and is losing the hair. And this is from when we talk about kids, but for adults, a woman having a mastectomy, having the uterus removed, or a soldier having a leg amputated, or, there's so many different varieties of losses of your body. And that's big. That's very big. For a woman to be having her uterus removed is a big deal. And I always explain this. The doctors may say, oh, lady, we are doing you a favor. This has the opportunity of changing into cancer. So we are getting rid of something that is harmful for you. Not validating the fact that that woman is losing something that is part of her body, that maybe she had kids, and that was the place where their kids were being, when they developed. Or maybe she didn't have kids and she wanted to have kids, and that's her opportunity of being a mom naturally gone, taken away. So that's a big loss. For a man as well, when they have a problem with the prostates, and there's so many different losses that have to do with yourself. Then we have now one, for example, that it's here, and I think it's very cute because nobody sees it as a loss because it's ritualized, is when the kids lose their teeth. Now, it's so cute, and in so many cultures, they actually make a big deal of it. So, in South America, we say that the little ratoncito Perez, that is a little mouse, is supposed to come and get it under your pillow and give you a little present and take it away. It's so funny that we say that it's a little mouse, but in United States, they say the tooth fairy. And whatever it is, basically everybody tells the kid that it's such a great deal, that it's so nice. Yes, you're losing your tooth, but you're getting a new one, and the new one is going to be stronger. Not only that, you're going to get money, or you're going to get a present. So you're losing something, but you're getting something in return. And the process is also explained. This means that you're getting big, that you're growing up. So the loss is explained, is validated, is ritualized, so the child doesn't have a trauma because lost a tooth. But imagine if we lose an eye and we do the whole ritual, maybe it wouldn't be so traumatic, but because we don't do anything about it, it's very traumatic. So we wish we have rituals for all these losses, so at least we can cope with them in a fun way. Let's just put it that way. Then we have another type of loss, that is the loss of an ability. And for a child is, let's say the kid, if for a medical condition, is not being able to do certain movements. He's paralyzed, or he has a vision problem, or he has obesity. There are different things that maybe he has a learning disability, and having a learning disability is not just having difficulties learning how to read and write, but it's difficulty keeping up with the rest of the class, difficulty doing things that everybody can do. And this is a big loss. You lose your ability of being like everyone else, doing what everybody is doing at the same pace. And these kids are bullied. So they are having a lot of many things happening at the same time. And if they are not helped, this will also leave a big trauma. For example, getting older, not being able to move the same way we used to move. For example, for me, having to wear my glasses to read books was a big deal. You know, I didn't think it was going to be so challenging for me, but I do remember when I had to go and have my eyes checked, and they said that the doctor said, okay, you need glasses to read. I felt like, oh my God, wow, my eyes are getting older, you know, now they need help to read. And that's basically, for me, it was a loss of my ability to read without a book, without glasses. And like this, there's so many things, you know, when you realize that you cannot run as fast, that you can not do the things that you could before. That at 10 o'clock, you're so tired, you want to go to bed. And before at 10 o'clock, you were so ready to do so many things yet, but now it's not the same. And this is also a big deal. And the last one has to do with what you mentioned about the shootings in the school, and that is the loss of the feeling of being safe in your community, to being, when you lose that safety, that sense of being cared and protected, and not only by your community, but the world. So for a child can be very critical to go to school if he has bullies there, or if something happened there, or if the teacher is a mean one. So that place that is supposed to be a safe place for the child is not anymore. And now when we talk about the shootings, it's even worse, because the child doesn't want to go to a place where he feels that he's in danger. But the other side is also with all this global warming and climate changes, you know, the misuse of plastic, and the oceans being like this, and you know, poles are melting. Kids are very much aware of this, and there are many kids having a lot of issues because they feel that planet Earth is not a safe place anymore. So it's very interesting to see how that's also a big loss. You know, the world where we live, the planet where we live, is not a safe place anymore. So what happens, Mark, is that every single loss that we don't process is still a loss. And they start coming to our mind little by little. Imagine a bunch of grapes. Okay, so you have the little one when you were 4 years old and you lost your cat, and then your teacher. So, you know, one little grape for the teacher, one little grape for the pet, then you move to a different city, then another frozen grief process, another loss that you didn't deal with. Then your parents get divorced, another one. And then you have so many of them that is like a bunch of grapes frozen there. Now, when it's there, yeah, we are not aware of them. We don't keep off thinking about them. And in one way or the other is keeping us from feeling the pain that we will normally feel. But in order for that frozen grief to be there, it takes a lot of our energy, our vital energy, the energy that we need to be alive, to be energetic, to have a happy and a meaningful life, to be healthy, to sleep well. It really takes away from us that energy just to keep it frozen until a little thing or a big thing comes to our life, takes that plug, and all of that melts down. And that is a big problem, because when that happens, it's not only that you are dealing with one little one, because it just doesn't melt by one. It's the whole freezer that is melting, and whatever you have in the freezer is melting. And that can end up in depression, in a psychotic attack. It can have a big impact if you don't deal with that in a proper way. So that's why it's so important to learn how to deal with our losses, so we do not keep on freezing them. Unfortunately, the way we learn how to cope with it unconsciously is the way we continue doing so. So if we learn to freeze it, we keep on freezing it. Let's just, okay, I'm strong enough. And on top of everything, everybody tells you, move on, you can make it, it's okay, you can do it, positive affirmations, go and do this, or meditate, or do this, or do that. Yes, those things all help, but they don't go to the root of the problem. So that's a big issue. I've been talking too much, Mark.
No, not at all. You're covering the whole topic. And that's true. I mean, how do we learn to internalize the loss and not be overwhelmed by the loss?
Well, that's a very lovely question. First of all, we need to understand it's a loss. That's number one. That's why I went through all those 7 different types, because when I was studying to be a thanatologist, one of the main things that we have to do is that we have to deal with our own unprocessed grief, so we can be helping others. And in that process, I realized that I had a lot of unprocessed grief that was there. And because my father took the unplugged the freezer, I realized that there were so many things that I had to deal with. So what we do is the first step is to recognize the loss. Recognize it as a loss. You know what I need to? It's so hot in here. I'm just going to turn the AC on. I'm trying to see where, okay, no, I couldn't find them. So the first thing is to recognize the loss. Number one, recognize it, put a name on it. Yes, this is a loss. And it's important, because when you recognize it, when you put a name on it, when you validate it, when you let yourself feel it, it's a completely different story. And it's very nice that nowadays in education and in social media, and this time of our humanity is going through a time where we talk about our feelings, how to connect to them. And so that's number one. We always teach people to put a name on the feeling as well, because yes, you can put a title to the loss, but you also have to put a title to the feeling. And usually when we are not feeling so well, we said, oh, I'm so bad. I'm not good. I'm not good. What does I'm not good mean? I'm sad. I'm frustrated. I'm devastated. I am motivated. I am anxious. There's so many different words to describe what we're feeling, but we are so simple. Our menu of emotions is so short. I'm sad, I'm happy. Actually, we don't even say sad. I'm not good. So one of the things that we always tell is put a name on your feeling. Put a name on your feeling. And the fact that you're feeling anger, guilt, anxiety doesn't mean that you're not good. It means that you're just going through those feelings. And there is a beautiful thing about letting yourself be sad. Mark, it's so nice to be sad and embrace your sadness and write about your sadness and walk and sweat it and sing it and dance it. And, you know, like when you are finally capable of letting yourself feel that for so many years they told you not to feel because they didn't know how to go through it, when you finally feel it, it's very therapeutical. You feel your sadness, you let it out in a healthy way, and then you just continue going on. But if you don't, it stays with you. And with frozen grief, the biggest problem is that in the mid-run or long run, you have a lot of illnesses, and some of them are autoimmune disease. So arthritis, fibromyalgia, how do you say that in English?
Yeah. It's difficult. Fibromyalgia.
Okay, thank you. So many things because your body cannot deal with that anymore. And then you get to the point where your body starts screaming what you have been shutting down. We always said, when you don't cry, an organ will do it for you. When you don't express it, a system will do it for you. And when you don't do it, your body will just collapse. So that's why we need to go through our pain to be able to cope with it and solve it.
Yeah. And the thought occurs to me when you're dealing with a loss, or you're dealing with something very emotional, and you know, it's a stiff upper lip, you deal with it consciously, you go on. But where it crops up most often is when you want to go to sleep, and your subconscious mind is then saying, no, 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 you got to deal with this issue. At that point, do you need to see somebody to talk to, or you just work it out on your own? You know, you just maybe bring it up and accept it more. You know, confront it.
Yeah, the thing is this, it's not only, I'm a big fan of getting help. Why not? We are, so by nature, we are social beings, and we need to be supported. We need to be guided. We need to be cared for. We need to be pampered and sustained. And we need somebody to be with us and help us through certain paths, because we cannot do it by themselves. By nature, we need that. So number one, we need a support group. Yeah, we need to talk about these things with people that we trust, with people that we know that they will be there for us. The thing is that when it comes about grief, if the person that you are trying to get help from hasn't gone through a strong grief process, they will never understand. Because you have to have gone through that to fully understand. You may imagine, oh, wow, losing a child has to be devastating, but I haven't lost a child. So I have a very good idea. I can definitely imagine it. But when If I haven't gone through that, it's very difficult to understand it. And if you are not in a world where you talk openly about this kind of topics, then people will be very uncomfortable with your sadness. People will be very uncomfortable with your anger. They won't know how to help you. That's why it's great to seek for professional help. So if you have an important loss, seek for a thanatologist. Why do you need a thanatologist? Number one, you need to be talking to somebody that understands what you're going through. Number two, you need to be listened to without being judged, without being, we don't give advice. Oh, you have to do this or you have to do that, or you shouldn't be feeling this way or not. No, the person needs to ventilate and to let everything out, knowing that the other person is really listening with the ears, with the heart, with the presence. That person is there for you to help you navigate through your sorrow and through all the things that you're going. You don't need to do it alone. Number three, you need to learn what are the things to expect, because there are a bunch of things, Mark, I've been learning, and the more I read, the more I study, the more I dive into it, the more I keep on saying like, oh my God, a lot happens to us when we are grieving. And we are so unaware of this. There are physical changes, there are psychological changes, there are energetical changes. I mean, for a child, for example, let me just give you a very interesting tip here. When a child is grieving and is not being accompanied, his amygdala is not going to develop as well as a child that hasn't gone through a big loss and has been left alone. Imagine, like, physically, there are changes in our body when we are grieving. So a thanatologist, a specialist, a therapist will tell you what to expect, what is normal, what is not normal, what we should be paying attention to. And then the last step will be to empower you, to help you, to provide you with a lot of strategies. So you have like a first aid kit with you. Yes, you're going through a storm. Oh, yes, it is horrible. It is tough. But you know what? In this first aid kit, you have a lot of tools to deal with it. And you know that you can read and you can write and you can cry and you can find a support group, that you can go to nature. There are different techniques that you will also know. You know how to self-regulate yourself. There's so many things that can be done. And when you know them and you can choose which one is better for you at that specific time, then you kind of go through the process in a natural way. But by yourself, just saying, okay, I need to get better. Okay, I will do something. All right. No, it doesn't work that way. Then you will freeze it again. And then you will say, oh, you see, I could do it by myself. Okay, life goes on, tough it up and go. And no, once again, you're freezing it again. And in one way or the other, it will come out. So I highly, highly recommend support.
It's always a difficult topic to talk about death. Well, it's a little easier. I know, I believe with my mother, she suffered so much at the end of her life that you accept the death and you say it's, you turn it into, it's a blessing, for that person that's suffering. And emotionally for us, then it was sort of like a relief. It wasn't really, I don't think it was a frozen grief. I think it was a relief that, we understand this is nature. And in that instance, it was really, we were all, this is a blessing because she suffered for like 10 years prior to her death. And I think that's just maybe an example where it's not a frozen grief. It's just we anticipated, we expected, we incorporated it, and we went on. Now even occasionally it just hits you during the year when you say, oh, today's my mother's birthday. And you don't think about it, but it'll crop up there and it'll remind you of things. So,
well, there's so many. You just touched a topic that yeah, there are different factors, and there's so many reasons why some deaths are so more difficult to process than others. And one of them is that, yes, that person is suffering, and in one way or the other, you prepared yourself for a certain period of time for that outcome. So that is called anticipatory grief. And basically it's like, you know, it's going to happen. It's not going to get better, but it's going to get worse. And that person is finally going to die. And when you see that the suffering has been for such a long time, and there is no chance that that person is going to get better. So yeah, you may feel a relief, but it also has to do with the age, for example. I mean, there's so many factors. It's not the same for you to have your mom passing when you are 10 years old. And even though she was very sick for a long time, and it was a very, long process when you were a child, than when it is when you're on your 50s, 60s, 70s. 70s, your mom wouldn't probably be alive, but it's different. The impact that it has is different. The way you mourn is different. The way you ritualize it is different. I have to tell you that today, a very close friend of mine died. And she was suffering for many years. And I was very sad when I got the news. But at the same time, I was relieved that she finally left this body that was causing her so much pain. But then you always think about the part of, wow, she still had, could have lived so many years and could have done so many things. And she was such a full of energy, and she was fun, and she was a great person, and she's gone. So sometimes certain things really help you go through it, but sometimes it just hits you very, very hard.
Now, if you just, I don't want to say force, but if you consciously just want to remember everything that was good and just put aside things that were not so positive, is that a therapy? Is that some way to deal with this, or are you just freezing up the grief?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, of course. One of the things that we always encourage, the thing is this, when we lose somebody that we really love, that it's very important in our life, that we have a strong connection with, a strong bond with, and that person is gone, the most difficult thing is to learn how to live a life without that person. There is a big empty space. There is an empty chair when you are having dinner. There is an empty part of the bed. There is an empty bedroom. There is like that person is not around anymore. So there is a big hole left at home, in the family, in society, because, when you look at death and the presence of that person in the different circles, it's a big hole. Now, that hole can only be filled with that person, because that space was that person. So how do you feel that emptiness that you feel when that person was not around? Remembering, honoring, continuing with the legacy. So that's why it's so beautiful. And we encourage people to talk about their loved ones. Oh, I remember my dad used to love this. Oh, this was his favorite food. Oh, you know what? Let's cook this because today was daddy's birthday and he loved lasagna. So let's all have lasagna on his birthday because it was his favorite meal. So when you keep that person in your daily life, through a sentence, through remembering a joke or listening to his favorite song or going to places or just bringing him into conversation. Oh, remember that he used to say this, and that. When you make something under his name, for example, a donation, every year you make a donation and you do it on the name of that person just to continue their legacy. It's beautiful. Mark, the biggest big non-profitable organizations, most of them originated from a big loss. A big loss triggered something beautiful. So some child that dies from a very weird illness, they don't know anything about it, and the family is wealthy enough to give a lot of funds to the research of that illness so they can help some other kids. So look, it's really taking all that pain and making it into something that is actually going to keep with the name of that person alive, that is going to make his life and his death mean something. When you give that meaning to it, when you keep them among you, when you serve some others, that's when definitely that loss, that emptiness that you feel because you're missing starts getting smaller, 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 up until it gets to a point that you just feel so grateful that that person was in your life, that you were part of, his family, or that person was in your life, and you change the relationship you had with that person, and you kind of establish a new relationship in that person's new way of existing. I talk to my dad all the time. He knows everything. Oh, he knows everything. I keep all that, this or that or whatever. Like, I keep him constantly present in my life, and very little I miss him because he's always with me. So, but this is something that you have to work on. It just doesn't happen with time. I always say time doesn't do anything. Absolutely. It's what you do on time what actually helps, but not by itself.
Well, that's important. I think when you mention to speak directly to your loss, and well, in your case and many other cases, I know it's a daily thing. It's just a way of life. You can just speak to that loss, and you continue on, and then it's not frozen grief, right? It's just a continuation in a different aspect.
Yes, it is. And actually, there is a name for that. It is called the continuous bond theory. And it was it was named after this psychologist that decided that the bond couldn't just be cut after the death, because the bond continued. And yeah, the body is gone, but the bond you have is still alive. And the ways, everything that you do to keep it strong, to keep it alive, to keep you still feeding you with that love, is what keeps you strong. When I said strong is what keeps you up and, adapting to this new way. So this theory is beautiful because it basically says you have to continue with that bond. How can you do it? As I told you before, you talk to that person. You write to that person. If you have a specific religion, you can just go to the temple, and if it is a church, for example, you can pray a mass for that person because you want everybody to be praying to that person. On Mother's Day, on Father's Day, on birthdays, you do things. For example, for my dad's death a couple of years ago, for his birthday, I asked everybody that knew him to tell me a little anecdote or something about him. Oh, Mark, it was so beautiful. We were really celebrating his life. It was his birthday, and everybody was celebrating his life, even though he was gone. So that's a way to keep that bond. Yes, he used to do this. He was so funny. He did this, he did that. And you just keep it. You just keep it on your daily life. The problem is that when we lose somebody that we love and we choose not to talk about that person because he hurts so much, at the end, what you're doing is you're trying to freeze that pain, but the pain is not going anywhere because not talking about him doesn't take the pain away. You know, talking about him will definitely, yes, you will cry. For example, pictures. You know, I had pictures everywhere because for me, I said, okay, Kata, you know what? This is the only way I'm going to be able to see my dad. So I'm going to have my favorite photos. I'm going to keep them around so I can see him and reminded him. You know, for Christmas, one of the ornaments, it says dad. So I know when I'm setting the Christmas tree that one of the ornaments says dad, and he's there with me putting up the tree. So there are different ways to keep them around so you don't feel that emptiness. That's what we do in thanatology. We teach you how to cope with this in a way that is going to be healthy, that nobody is going to say, oh my God, Kat is so crazy. She keeps on talking with her dad. No, that's not going to happen. That's not.
Oh, I think almost everybody does that, I believe. I know at one point with a group discussion we were having, and we were talking about these types of things, and I said we have to realize that at some point every one of us becomes an orphan. And the group got very upset with me because they said, "No, my parents are physically gone, but I'm not an orphan. They're still with me every day." So that invoked that feeling in me that maybe I was being very short-sighted, that I need to have those discussions still with the people that have passed from me.
Yeah, there is this, I don't know if I can call it a trend. I just learned it recently and I was fascinated by it. A Japanese man from a little town lost his cousin. His cousin died from something, I don't remember what, and they were very close. And there was this phone booth that the cousin will always use to call the other cousin and tell him things. So every week, he will walk to the town. He will take the phone from the phone booth. So you can imagine how many years ago, because you don't see them anymore. And he will call his cousin and they will talk about the week. So I did this and I did that. And how about you? And how is life? So that was a very important bond. And even though they were not together, the telephone was the one who was putting them together. Okay, remember, there was no social media, no photos, no videos, no nothing, just that phone. And the cousin died. And this man was very, very sad about it. And it came up to his mind to continue with that ritual. He said, well, you know what? He's gone, but the phone is still there. And I still want to talk to him and I want to tell him. Maybe he's not on the other side, but he's maybe next to me listening. So let me just go. But so he continued calling him every week. And when you look from outside, you may think like, my God, is that man losing it? Is he psychologically stable? Because that's the first thing we do, right? Like with our mind, it comes out of the standard. So we think that maybe there's something fuzzy here. But it was so good for him. And it really helped him go through that hard time, to the point that everybody around him started seeing that maybe we can do that. And that became very popular. So people will go to that phone to talk to their loved ones. And it became, look, it was in a tiny little place in Japan, and it ended up spreading around the world. So if you Google it, they are called the wind phone. the wind phone. And there are different places where you can just even, there are maps of them. So you can Google it and check it to see where is a wind phone. So you can go and talk to your loved one. Now, this is just a symbol of that connection. And that has helped a lot of people, and that it's beautiful. Sometimes people need to know that that's an option, that that's possible, that it's not that you're losing it, but it's actually something that is going to keep on helping, because at the end of the day, well, I believe that they do listen to us, and it's important for them to feel that they're still around. So that's something to do.
Are you counseling people on grief?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have privates online. And as I mentioned to you before, there is the teacher that I got trained. My certification was done through this doctor. He's a thanatologist. It's Colombian, and he has 40 years of experience. He's a very well educated and very loving man. And he has a very wide net of support groups. And I am part of one of them. It is called G5. And for G5, we started first helping children. And it was beautiful because after the pandemic, everything was virtual, everything was through Zoom. That was one of the beautiful things that COVID left us. That was how the world just got so small and we could all get connected. Right. So he said, well, Kata, you are a preschool teacher. You know how to deal with virtual lessons. We are planning on doing something with kids to help them go through these grief processes. Would you like to be part of it? And I said, yeah, sure. But I thought that it was just like a little workshop or something like that. And it ended up being the first Latin American support group online for children and teenagers. And so far, that has been one of the most meaningful experiences for me. Here I can see that one of our friends is with us tonight. We were together in that group. The name is Pepe Grillo. And in Pepe Grillo, what we do is we give all these tools to children. We teach them about losses. We teach them about dealing with emotions. We talk about death in such we talk about death in such a natural way. And Mark, this is really fascinating because when you can talk to a 5, 6, 7-year-old about death, like you were talking about, a cartoon character, it's very nice because the more natural that you approach the topic, the more natural the kid is going to see it, and the more natural he's going to learn how to cope with it. So we started working with these children, learning a lot from them, using all our knowledge. So it was a great work. It's still going on, and it's for free. It's online. Then we realized that the caregivers of these children were also grieving, and they didn't know how to deal with kids that were grieving. So we said, okay, you know what? Let's just create another group where the caregivers are going to have some knowledge about child's grieving processes, and they can learn and they can deal with the kids at home. Okay, great. And then we said, okay, but wait a second, they are also grieving and they also need some support. We are giving the support to the kids and the education to the caregivers, but they also need some support. Okay, let's open that. So here we have 3 groups. Then we said, but wait a second, the kids are spending most of the time at school, and teachers, the psychologists of the schools, the directors, nobody knows how to deal with kids when they're grieving. And they don't even understand when the kid is grieving because they act completely different than what adults do. So we started training people that works at school, you know, teachers and psychologists, to learn how to deal with them, to help them, to teach them strategies. And the fifth group, because this is like we call it G5, it's on Facebook. We also have lives every Monday about this topic, you know, engraving strategies, tools. So basically, that's what I am doing. I am not part of the Pepe Grillo anymore, because since I'm in Turkey, like right now it's 3 a.m. here. So when I was doing that, it was very challenging to do it every week for a few days a week. So I said, okay, I cannot do this anymore. I'm just as a facilitator for the teachers group, but I can share all that information with you later on. So if anybody is interested, we are more than welcome to. Because this is really, we need to do this. We need to learn. We need to be prepared so we can not only help others, but also have some tools to deal with our own losses.
Do you teach the children that the death of an adult is really a crossing over into the spiritual world? Do you teach about spirituality?
No, we don't. And the reason we don't is because when we have an open group, it's very different. We had kids from Argentina, from Chile, from Bolivia, from Dominican Republic, from Colombia, from Mexico, from so many different countries. And we don't know what is the religious, the religion that they follow. They can be Protestant, they can be atheists, they can be, they, you know, like, this is not a religious thing. And that's what I really like about it. Everything that we do and we teach the kids, it's based on psychology from a thanatologist point of view, but we don't go into that area because that's not for us to do. Imagine I'm telling a child, okay, don't worry, your grandma's spirit is still around, and the mom doesn't believe in that. So no, we don't go there. But what we do is we teach them, the first few sessions are about dealing with feelings. So what to do when you are sad? What is to be sad? Guilt. Children feel a lot of guilt. How to understand that you're guilty, how to deal with that guilt, how to process it, and how to get rid of it. Anger, you know, I'm so angry that my daddy died. I want my dad to be around. How come he abandoned me? So how to deal with that anger. So once we have worked a lot, but when it comes to emotions, pretty much every session we discuss emotions, but the main theme for that will be the first sessions. And then we talk about losses. So kids at a very early age, they know what a loss is. And they know what kind of losses they have been going through. And for each lesson session, we teach them strategies for them to cope with. And it is so cute, Mark, to see how these kids go home, they go to school and they teach their teachers, some other friends, you know, I learned this, why don't you do this? Oh, I did this, so you should be doing this. We have a girl, she was super cute, and she learned that her teacher's mom was hospitalized and she had cancer, and we had done something that we call the calming bottle. So she made one calming bottle extra, and she took it to her teacher and she said, teacher, when you are too sad or too excited or too stressed, you can play with this bottle. Look, this will help you calm down and you will be breathing. Imagine an 8-year-old little girl giving a tool to a teacher because she knew that the teacher was sad, and that was a way that she could cope. So that's really beautiful. That's something that we do, and it helps. We also have a lot of stories, because with kids, working with stories is great. So also that's something that is used, and there are like different things. One of my favorite, Mark, and here it's another tool to continue with that bond. It is called the treasure box, or to translate it word by word will be the box of memories. It's like a memory box. And inside, the kids actually decorated outside with stickers, with the name of the loved one, or with photos. And inside, they just put things that, for example, if it is grandpa, so grandpa's glasses are inside. Oh, grandpa gave me this little doll when, for my birthday. So the doll is inside. And little drawings or letters that the child has done to grandpa. So they are in the box. So that box, it's something concrete about grandpa that connects the child with grandpa when the kid is sad. So if the kid is very sad, he can just go and take the box and hug it and open it and look at the glasses and think about grandpa, and or draw another picture and put it back in the box. So this is a way to connect and to deal with the emotion in a concrete way. And it works wonders. The children love it and the adults adore it. So that's a lovely, lovely tool. So as you can see, there's so many things that we can do. Many. You can even have your own box, Mark.
We have a question on the chat about what does a child do from an abusive household?
Okay.
I guess mostly it'd be how they deal with them at school, or how a psychologist would deal with them. But you have a child that's been abused, and how do you deal with that child?
Well, something that is super clear, very, very clear, that we make it very clear to people that we help, is that we are not therapists. We do not, our sessions as a thanatologist, we accompany people through the process, but we do not have a therapeutical or a psychological approach to that. So what we do is we teach them ways of putting limits, how to deal with that, how to talk about that, how to deal with the emotions. Like, we do all of this now. But when it comes about topics like sexually abuse, that's something that we really do not deal with, because that's a very important topic. Now, if we see that the kid definitely is going through that, we definitely just tell the caregivers to take him to a specialist, because that's a very sensitive topic. That's a topic that needs, that cannot be done in a group with some other kids. You know what I mean? That's a very private, that's something that leaves a very, very big emotional tattoo. So that has to be cared in a very professional way on one-to-one basis. So that's a sensitive topic.
Okay, very good. So what questions have I not asked that I should be asking?
Okay, well, let me see. Well, basically, Mark, all I want to tell, and what I really want to be clear right now after this beautiful conversation is, we all have losses that we haven't processed, and it's important to, go through them. Sometimes just to acknowledge them, it takes that space, and it takes it away. So it opens more room for growth and happiness. That's one. So let's see if you feel. Now, the other day they asked me, how do you know that you have, frozen grief? How do you know that frozen grief turns into something that is called frozen blocks of time? And how do you know that you have that? And my answer was this: you feel that you're missing something. You feel that you have so many things in your life, and you feel grateful, and you feel that you know, you should be happy, but you're not. Something is bothering you. Something makes you feel that you're not complete. Something is taking your energy away. Something is taking your inner peace away, but you cannot put a finger on. Most likely is a frozen grave that is trying to, you'll go there like, yoo-hoo, I'm here, hello. You have been keeping me here for a long time, so please look at me. So um, if this is something that maybe happened to anyone, just, you know, observe. I went through 7 different type of losses. See if there is something that, you know, kind of stay with you. Maybe that's a topic that you can go deeper into and work with it. And that's it. You know, let's cry, let's be happy, let's be sad. Let's just let ourselves have all those feelings that we were not allowed to feel before. But now we are all free to feel and express and embrace, because that is really the first step to heal.
Very good. We have a number of people listening. Does anybody have questions for Catalina?
Well, I don't have a question exactly, but I just wanted to thank Catalina because I think this is very important. It's very important to get educated in how to grieve and also to talk about the type of losses. And it's very important too. Some people only relate the death when somebody passed away, but now when somebody lost a job or or especially kids that they feel the from what I heard, they feel or process the grieving different than the adults, right? And it's very important to know that too, especially for the teachers, because the children spend a lot of time at school. So it's very important for them to know that. And something that also you, Mark, if you allow me to call you
Yes.
Mark, you said that it was very hard to talk about the death. And I was thinking that's the only thing for sure that we all gonna have, and we all going to die. And it's a hard topic, and I think it this kind of that's why I want to thank Catalina, because she talked about this subject, and also she said about when we don't express our feelings is when things get complicated, and it's true, because we don't allow to feel the sadness or the anger or other emotions, and it's very important. So thank you, Catalina, for that topic.
Thank you, Betty, for being here. Thank you so much.
It sort of raised a question for me, and just in terms of the general topic of grief, and basically, at what age do men and women separate? Because I'm sure in the growing up process, we sort of separate at some point to where we don't express our feelings the same way. You know, we generally believe that women are more emotional than men are, and that, you know, men keep their feelings much more contained. Is that something you find in these studies?
Yeah, and you know what? That's one of the things that I've been meaning to ask the person that is in charge of our support group, Pepe Grillo. Like, I want to see how many kids are boys and girls are from 4 to 7. And then we have from 7 to 9, and then from 12 to 16. So I want to see what's the ratio between boys and girls when they keep on growing up. But I remember that there were more girls. Now I cannot tell you numbers, but yes, it is. Once again, nowadays, even in the schools, they're teaching the kids to deal with their emotions, to express their emotions. So this is a nice time for the kids to finally understand that boys can cry, boys can draw pictures when they're sad, boys can be upset and verbalize it. But from the previous generations, there is a big gap. The sad thing is that also women continue with that gap, telling their own kids, don't cry, suck it up, you have to be strong. We said, women are more emotional and it's easier for them to express themselves, but at the same time, in one way or the other, they are also making sure that their sons, their kids, their neighbors, the little boys around them are all more quiet about their feelings. And if it is not mom, definitely dad telling the child not to cry for that or not to be such a sissy, all these terms that are so uncool. But Mark, I can see that there is finally we're making with the advancing, we're like baby steps, but we are going through a nice place where everybody, boys and girls, and everyone is being allowed to express themselves. There is this new podcast, and I am so happy and so proud in Colombia. And the name of the podcast is Men Do Cry. That's the name of it. And they are talking about, interviewing men that are very successful in life, but have gone through great depressions from their mental health has been shaken, and that's why they had to go to therapy. They had to do things. So it is so great to see that it's out there. You know what? Men are also saying, we need to express ourselves. Coldplay the other day, he was saying, mental health is so important. When these big artists are on the stage saying, hey, you need to go to therapy, you need to let it out, you need to find support, I think it's beautiful. The male female difference is kind of, that big gap is closing. I like to always see the bright side of that.
Well, you've lived in two very different cultural countries, but underlying at the base layer, are they similar or are they dissimilar?
Turkish men are very emotional. You wouldn't believe so. Very emotional. They have great family connections. They're very family oriented. They have a lot of festivities that go around being together with the family. So, and when they are together with the family, they have these very specific bonds and way of acting on those feelings. So, yeah, even though it's so different, even though it's on the other side of the world, there's so many things that are very similar when it comes to, expressing those feelings. And the rituals, with when somebody dies, the way they keep company to each other, the way they actually gather to have a meal and talk about the deceased one. There's so many things that are quite similar. So it's interesting.
Very good. I know it's late in Turkey and we're keeping you
It's
awake.
okay. It's a pleasure. I love talking about this. So thank you so much, Mark. Anytime I will get up at this time when it comes to talk about, creating a culture of grieving.
Okay, very good. I know we're blessed to have you, the information you have, the foresight and the intuition that you've told us about. It's really been amazing and very helpful, and we're gratified that you were able to come visit with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So unless we have any other questions from our group, I'll give you a second. And just leave you by saying that next Tuesday at 7 p.m. we'll have another conversation to keep you informed of many topics. So thank you again, Catalina, and thank you for everyone that's joined us.
Thank you.